Episode 3. I want a rich guy to take care of me. Young lady, you can't say things like that. This young man, Flora couldn't believe the way this woman was treating George. What a vile and manipulative girl she was. Although her eyes were pretty, they were cold, and she seemed to have no problem humiliating people. Flora, sit down. Don't bother. Just ignore her. George didn't want Alice to embarrass herself further, so he attempted to defuse the situation. But Alice's face stiffened. Looking at his confident demeanor, she felt even more upset. Ignore me? You want to be rich and beautiful, right? See if I don't spoil your good fortune. Hey, George, what right do you have to make people ignore me? Who the heck are you? He was just a lousy, poor waiter. You have the nerve to strut around in front of me? You want to show off in front of these rich, beautiful ladies, is that it? You're so poor you can't even afford decent clothes. Hey, that's too far. George hadn't expected her to mock him like this. It was as if the Alice he had known before, the one who was considerate and supportive, had been fake. Alice was glad she was finally getting a rise out of him. You don't know anything about this guy, Alice warned Flora. He's a hypocrite. He's used his honest face to deceive lots of girls. I'm just the most recent one he's strung along with fake promises. Fortunately, I found out the truth sooner rather than later and left him in the lurch. He's a waiter who got fired trying to steal a customer's phone. Alice didn't care about angering George at all. Even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare do anything to me. George spoke up, giving her one last chance. If you continue to slander me, don't blame me if I deny our relationship ever happened. Originally, he had wanted to take the black card and share his news with her. He had wanted to buy a new phone for her as a parting gift. That was obviously off the table now. She glanced at him coldly and cursed in her heart. You're just a loser. Why are you acting so high and mighty? You, Alice addressed Flora again. I advise you to go home and avoid this guy. If you get entangled with a person like this, you're asking for trouble. Alice, as far as I know, there must have been a misunderstanding, Flora replied. George is not like that. She was concerned that for some reason he might still value his friendship with Alice, so she instantly adjusted her attitude, suppressing her disapproval as much as possible. But George was done. Flora, leave her be. This woman isn't worth your time. Because of her obsession with money and power, her heart is rotten. She's a horrible person. I'm afraid that just speaking to her would be an insult to your good character. He turned his back to his ex. Alice, why don't you just leave it? It's obvious that you've hooked up with a rich, handsome guy for his money. He wasn't holding back, and Alice became embarrassed and angry. She glared at him and wished she could go up and slap him to shut him up. Since when does he have the guts to stand up to me? George smiled indifferently as he proudly said, Alice, no matter how much you try to mess this up for me, Flora likes me. She likes me even if I'm poor and unemployed. And I like her. What do you think you can do to me? George, you're so shameless. You're not a man at all, are you? Huh? Alice felt that she had finally opened her eyes and truly recognized what kind of person George was. And it wasn't the kind of person she wanted anything to do with. It's not like you don't know. George looked her up and down with a knowing smile. When Ben heard this, he wasn't happy. Didn't she say she was a virgin? Man, I've wasted so much time on her. And bringing her to this restaurant for a meal? It isn't cheap. He had planned to get Alice into bed after dinner, but now that he knew she wasn't a virgin, he was quickly losing interest. He turned on Alice. Alice, how dare you lie to me? To think I spent so much time and money on you. We're done. I'm not the kind of guy who will take a woman who's already done the rounds. He gave her a disgusted look and left. Alice was struck dumb. Her eyes glazed over as she stood there motionless. George suddenly felt a pang in his heart. This girl, who he had once wanted to hold in his arms and protect, who had been his girl, had just been insulted and belittled right in front of his eyes. It turned out he did still feel some pity for her. After all, he had genuinely liked her. He had wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Unfortunately, she wasn't so sentimental and didn't care about it at all.
I can't believe you did that, asshole. You ruined my shot with Ben just because I dumped you. I can't afford to lose a guy like him.
George didn't want anything more to do with Alice now, so he turned to sit back down and ignore her. She glared hatefully at him and Flora before chasing after Ben.
Ben, it's not what you think. Listen to me, honey.
George was stunned for a few seconds as he processed what had just happened.
Sir, are you all right? I can see that some part of you still likes her. If you reveal who you really are, perhaps she'll come back to you.
Flora looked at him calmly and steadily as she gave this considerate suggestion. Why are you suggesting that? A woman like her, who only cares about money, who sleeps around, isn't worth revealing my identity for. What happened just now was an eye-opener, and it was all thanks to you. Here, let's have a toast. George's expression changed dramatically as he sneered. His words surprised Flora a little bit. However, his actions seemed pretty fitting for a member of the prestigious Rudd family. Flora's eyes were clear and bright. When she raised her wine glass and met George's gaze, she gave a gentle smile. To a new life. It looked like being the assistant of the youngest